Hey fans, it's Dan here. Before we get going on this podcast, I just want to say what you're about to hear a few minutes from now is Dan being correct and Ryan being wrong. Ryan's first All-Star game was indeed in 2009, not 2008. Ryan, I had it right. You corrected me into it being wrong. So, thanks for that.
Dan, I have 4 kids. I don't remember what I did yesterday, let alone when I made my first All-Star game. So, sorry, fans. But yes, Dan was right.
The 11th Inning Podcast starts now.
First of all, who is the most famous person or the most important person you've ever cooked for? And second of all, were you more nervous to cook for them or throw out the first pitch in the World Series?
This moment was very amazing, and I was so thankful that you agreed to be my catcher and you saved me. I arrived. I trained so much for the week before that by the time I got there, I couldn't move my arm.
Your arm was so sore.
Literally, I couldn't move my arm.
That's hilarious.
I did okay.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the 11th Inning Podcast. I'm Dan Kolko. This is Ryan Zimmerman. And welcome in yet again. We've got frankly, Zim, maybe the most exciting episode so far from our perspective. If you're talking about biggest name celebrity that we've had on the pod so far, I mean, Jason's pretty good, I guess.
Yeah, no offense to our previous guests.
No offense to our previous guests if you're listening. But José Andrés is a pretty big deal, and he's going to be joining us on the 11th Inning Podcast today.
Well, his personality is as big as his celebrity. So it's going to be fun to interview him. I mean, you talk about a guy with energy. This guy is always somewhere, always doing something to help people, and absolutely loves the city of D.C. So I'm really interested to ask him some questions and just get his feel about some D.C. stuff. So it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, you and I always joke that with all of these interviews that we've done on the podcast so far, you know, it maybe ends up being, when people listen to it, 35 minutes, 40 minutes, 45 if it's long. And we feel like we could go quite a bit longer with all of our guests, like a lot longer. Yeah. With Jose, I feel like we could sit here with him for 6 hours, but I don't think that our podcast recording and editing crew would appreciate that too much.
And he would talk for 5 hours and 55 minutes of it. But no, it's going to be a good one. So it's, I'm excited. Like you said, he's done a lot of cool things.
Yep. All right. You ready?
I'm good. Yeah, I think we'll start with you today.
Okay.
So put you on the spot first. What do you got for me? What do you got to start the show?
I got a time of year that we're starting to get towards the All-Star break, which means over the last couple of weeks, Major League Baseball and its 30 teams have started to open up All-Star voting and promote their players for the Midsummer Classic. And the Nationals certainly have a few players that are worthy of going this year. The All-Star game will be in Atlanta. I think, we don't need to get into specifics, but we've got a couple guys that are having some monster first halves. So go to nationals.com/vote and get your votes in for your Nationals to send them to Atlanta. But Zim, you've been a part of 2 All-Star games as a player in 2009 and 2017.
Yes,
there we go.
2008.
2008
and
2017.
Right in between.
Well, I had it 5 minutes ago before we started recording, so.
It's okay. I know how much you care about me. It's all
right. And then we got to experience the All-Star game here in D.C. in 2018. Yes. I got that one right for sure. Tough to forget that. So I think just talking about the All-Star experience would be fun for our listeners. You as a player twice, and then just the experiences that we all got to share here in D.C. and the ways that a multi-day event and the pinnacle at the midpoint of the baseball season can uplift a baseball community and bring everyone together around the game that we love.
Well, I'll just start just by saying, like, the city that hosts it, it's basically a year-long preparation and bump in revenue, attendance. You know, a lot of the restaurants and stuff around the stadium are looking forward to that, basically a week now, because they do the Futures game.
Yeah,
they do some sort of celebrity softball game. You have concerts. You have people coming in from out of town that just come in for the whole week. So it's a huge deal for the city and the businesses basically around the park. As far as like playing, for me it was cool because in '08 when I went to St. Louis, I mean, that was only my third full year in the big leagues. So I was really nervous. I mean, I remember my parents came, my brother, a couple of my good buddies from home, and we just kind of took it all in. We went to all the different parties, and then the game came around. I didn't start, so I came in, I forget what inning, 6th, 7th inning, something like that, and I remember going to third base, and I'm pretty sure Albert was still playing first base, and I'm like, he's throwing me ground balls in between innings, and you're like, I think it's maybe the most nervous throw I've ever made to first base because
it's Albert frickin' Pujols.
It's Albert Pujols, like, and you're in St. Louis, and it's your first ever, all-star experience. You grow up always wanting to play on an all-star team and be a part of that. So for me, the 2008 one was more of like, I almost got there and then left and hardly remembered any of it because I was so nervous. And now the one in 17 in Miami, obviously way later in my career. And that one, I mean, we had 4 starters, I think. I mean, I started at first base. Murph started at second base. Harp started in right field. And I believe Max started
was
the
the
game.
starting pitcher.
So just
Steven Strasburg made the team as well as a reserve. You guys had a whole contingent down there in Miami.
Yeah, just to do those things together. And my dad came down and got to ride in like the parade with me, and by then you kind of know what to do. Like your agency has a party. Like we had a party on a boat down there.
Oh,
and
wow.
And you get to see a lot of players then that I was friends with, and it's just different when you're older and later in your career. You're a little bit more comfortable.
Yeah.
Like when I walked into the locker room in St. Louis, I just sat in my locker and kind of, it's almost like you were a rookie again. You didn't want to ruffle any feathers.
Yeah.
And then when you go to Miami, you knew a bunch of those guys. So, but just, the honor to play in an all-star game, being recognized for having a good first half. It's just fun, man. Like it's such an awesome experience. And I'm just so glad that my family and some of my buddies got to experience it with me.
When you found out the first time that you were going, do you remember how that news was delivered or how you received it? We always joke about how you're such a steady guy, but that had to be a pretty overwhelming moment for you to achieve that sort of acclaim that early in your career. And as you said, something that you had kind of grown up, you watch it and now you're a part of it. It had to be amazing.
Yeah, and the way they do it normally, at least the way that they've always done it here, is the manager will come out into the locker room and like nobody knows. I mean, everyone has a sense, like we were talking about, like we have a couple guys that most likely are going to make it, but you just never know.
Right.
And they basically have a team meeting, and anytime you get something or one of your teammates gets something in front of the whole team, like I think that's the beauty of sports and baseball, and it gets emotional because everyone in that room knows how hard it is to achieve that goal and how much work goes into it. So to see people, and this was me and my first one in St. Louis, like to see people receive that news, some people cry, some people it's just a culmination of so much work, so much time put in by your parents taking you play. Like it's one of those moments where it's like, man, like everything sort of hits you. But it's the great thing about sports is you get to see those moments, and people think we're machines and we're robots, and we're actually just humans like everyone else, and it's fun to be a part of those moments where you see that wall break down and just see people's raw emotions for an achievement is pretty cool.
Ryan says that. I watched him charge up in his charging port before we did this podcast.
Yeah. Yes.
Robot Zim, ready to go. No, that's really cool stuff.
Yeah.
And then in 2018, a year after your Miami experience, DC gets to host the All-Star Game, and you talk about the impact that those festivities have on a city. I remember the year before in 2017, all of our nationals team employees that are involved in really anything, any aspect of the organization, from ticket sales to like the actual events staff to the PR folks, everyone is working towards this almost a full year in advance. And then as 2018 actually comes, it's a scramble to make sure that everything is ready around the ballpark, around the surrounding areas. And I think what was cool here about DC, this is the only one that I've ever experienced, is, you know, there are events not just at the ballpark, but all over different areas of the city and the DMV area. I went out and emceed an event they had Commissioner Manfred there, and it was the unveiling of one of the new fields, the charitable fields that were donated by, I believe, Major League Baseball. And they had the giant scissors and everything. And they, at the end, Commissioner Manfred was like, do you want these scissors? And I was like, I guess I'll keep them. So now they're just in our home. Allie kind of likes them, actually. I thought she would wonder what the hell the big gold scissors were doing.
How big are we talking?
I mean,
do you ever
two
use
feet long
them for anything else?
Just to like trim a string on my shirt or something like that. But no, it's cool being a part of those events. And then the way that it worked out in 2018 with Bryce in the home run derby, wearing the bandana with the DC flag on it, and the American flag bat, and the city lifting him up, knowing that might very well be his last year here as a national. And Davey picking him up, and it was
Doolittle was there.
Doolittle was there on the fields. It was just really, really special. I was in the stands for that, and the wave of excitement and emotion that everyone was feeling then was amazing. So that was my little non-player, tiny little bit of it, and I know a lot of our fans were involved in that too, whether they came to the Derby or the game or one of the many events,
or just hung out in the Navy Yard area. Like I obviously have restaurant stuff going on, and talking to
shout out Saltline.
Talking to people in the area. I mean, it was a huge deal for them. I mean, that week, not only obviously did they have great business, but I think they got to showcase this
great
area,
point.
this neighborhood, and what this neighborhood has turned into over the last 20 years. And it's one of the coolest, I think, stadium experiences in the league. So I think you get to do stuff like that. I watched some of the home run derby from the top of the hotel in center field.
Wow.
I actually went to a party over there and was watching it. I've never watched anything from over there. Like, to be able to see the stadium in that light as a fan was really cool for me, and it also like made me love this area even more, just to see like the excitement and what has become. So yeah, All-Star Game's a huge deal. Looking forward to some of our boys getting to represent.
Nats.com/vote. All right, Zim, your turn. What do you got this week?
Well, we're getting into summer. We're getting into good baseball weather, hot. Kids are off from school now, so got to take them somewhere. We're going to some games. And it kind of made me think, like, I know I love to travel and I love certain cities. I have kind of my favorite cities that we went to. You've gotten to go to a lot of these now. Like, what's your favorite city to visit?
Well, we just got back on our last road trip prior to recording this from New York. Just a quick little stop in New York, which is always solid. And we're lucky. I mean, the travel can be a bear at times over the course of a long season, and we've talked about how challenging it can be. But it also allows you to see our entire country. Like, you think about the number of major cities in our country that you have not visited in your career. There's probably not all that many. So we get to see some cool places. For me, thinking about it from, you're in there for a few days. Yep. We're there when it's warm. We've talked a lot about Chicago, I feel like, on our podcast already, having D-Row on and sharing some of his memories there and a couple other stories. But to me, you can't beat Chicago in the summertime. And as we've discussed, if you get a weekend series there, as we're going to get this year, early in September, with a day off on Thursday, by the way, before a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You get the Friday afternoon game, you get a Saturday afternoon game, and then you have the day game Sunday, which gives you the opportunity to really see the city. I think people might expect that we get to see or experience more of the city than we do when we're there for baseball. But when you have 2 day games in a 3-day stretch over a weekend, that allows you to go to a restaurant or go to a show or whatever it is you want to do.
Take your kids to the zoo or, actually be a citizen of the city, I guess. And, you're right. Like, when you go into a city and you have a night game, day game, I mean, you're really not doing much unless you wake up early in the morning and walk around. But a lot of times you're getting in late from the city before.
Yep.
So that first day you kind of sleep in, and the bus is usually around, sometime between 1 and 2. So unless you get up at 9 o'clock, you're not really walking around. So Chicago, obviously, like you said, is beautiful. But I think the game times and the ability to actually experience the city. I mean, walking along the lake, just, even getting one of the bikes that you can rent and biking around. Like, I mean, it's a good call.
I don't know how to ride a bike, by the way. That's another Dan nugget
Hold on.
for you.
So you don't know how to ride a bike?
I mean, I could if I
Have
needed
you
to.
ever ridden a bike before? Like, was this like you tried and failed and just quit?
Yeah,
Or
that's
like
exactly right. As a
5-year-old?
as a youth.
As a youth, you quit.
I kept I was an athletic kid, but I didn't have good balance. So all of the like skateboarding, rollerblading, back when that was a thing, bike. My dad took me to learn how to ride a bike, and I kept falling, and I wasn't happy. And he was like, "We could keep working at this, or we could go home." And I said, "Let's go home." And then I just never
went back.
No.
Wow. So
We can get into this more maybe another time, but
this is a great nugget.
yeah.
Wow. I love it.
But anyway, yes, people can ride bikes around Chicago.
Just not you, Dan.
Generic people. So what's your city? Where are you choosing on the baseball schedule to visit?
Yeah, this one, it's not easy for me to pick because there's so many great cities, but I think I've said it before. I've always loved San Diego. First of all, I've always done well there, I think, which helps. And I always loved going west. Your body feels good there, especially if it's like the summer here when it's hot and muggy. You fly out west and it's like there's no humidity.
Right.
It's 65, 70 in the mornings, at night. Doesn't get too hot during the day. But San Diego, the setup, man, the hotel, the gas lamp district right there.
Yep.
There's no team bus. You can just walk wherever you want. God, the airport, you land. The airport's 10-minute bus ride. So everything is close. The food's great out there. Everyone's happy, obviously. They live in San Diego.
Yeah, how could you not be?
It's 70 and sunny every day. So that's mine. I love the whole setup there. The hotel, the proximity to the park, the coffee shops right there, the food if you want to go out after a game, you literally just walk across from the hotel. Because everything's so close, because there's no team buses where people go at different times, I found it that we would always all hang out more there. Like the lobby bar there that we stay at, had outdoor fire pits and stuff, and everyone's coming back at the same time. So I feel like maybe I liked it so much too because the team kind of hung out even more than we did other places, just because what else are you going to do? Everyone's walking back, and if 2 or 3 people are sitting there and then you walk back, it's like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
Sit down. And then all of a sudden there's 15 people there. So San Diego brings back lots of really cool memories. We actually flew there. That just brought back a memory. We flew there on July 4th one year. We played here.
Getaway day on July 4th.
Which we play at 11.
Yeah.
You can double check it, but I'm almost positive we did this because my family came. So we flew out, and they were on a flight as well. And we were landing in San Diego right as it was getting dark, and fireworks were going off.
Oh, wow.
And because it's so close, you get on the bus, you get to the hotel, and then you could just walk. It was just a cool memory that I just had about we had July 4th here and then July 4th there. So it was pretty cool. But I love that city.
Little baseball time travel.
Yeah, back in time.
Awesome. Good stuff. All right. Stay with us here on the 11th Inning Podcast. When Ryan and I bring you back, we're going to welcome in Ryan's buddy and a DC, really national legend, José Andrés. Stay with us. Welcome back to the 11th Inning Podcast. I'm Dan Kolko. This is Ryan Zimmerman. And joining us is José Andrés. What doesn't this man do? He's the chef and owner of countless restaurants, many of which are located here in D.C., including the Michelin-starred Mini Bar. He's the winner of James Beard Awards. He's the founder of World Central Kitchen, a nonprofit which provides meals in the wake of natural disasters. He's a nominee for the Nobel Peace Prize. He's a co-host, along with Martha Stewart, of a new NBC primetime show, Yes, Chef. I'm sure I could go on and on, but eventually we have to ask you questions here, Jose. So I will stop there and just say, José Andrés, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. I'm honored.
Oh, well, I've gotten to know Jose a little bit over the years, and, we met at many different things, and I've done his Capital Food Fight every year, which I think is kind of where we really started to talk and meet, which is, an awesome event. It's at the Anthem every year now, and I, for some reason, get to judge food with Tom Colicchio and all these people that know food.
Your very refined palate.
Yes. I'm there for the good food and the drinks and to just hang out with nice people. But I've had the pleasure to get to know Jose over the years, and all the things that you just said about him as far as his accomplishments. I think I can say he's a better person even than all that stuff.
Jose, you are coming to us on this recording from Spain, which is your homeland. You're from Spain originally. You came over to the United States. How old were you when you first moved to the U.S.?
Well, I had two comings to America. One, I was in the Spanish Navy. I did the military service. I already was a cook. Happens when I joined the military, they put me cooking for the admiral, and I was like, really? So I wanted to go on a boat, but no any boat. So as I was cooking for the admiral, I began I couldn't ask him I'm not happy cooking for you in your house, but I kind of began finding words to kind of tell him, wouldn't it be nice if the sailors in the ships could enjoy the same food you eat in your house?
Yeah.
At the end, he was like, what are you trying to tell me? He put me in this boat, the Juan Sebastián del Cano, in honor of the person that ended the circumnavigation of Earth that Magellan began.
Wow.
And this was the training ship of the midshipmen. So during 6 months, they will go on this tall ship, a sailboat, 4-mast, and they will do a half trip around the world to a full. I did 6 months in the ocean, 300 people. Anyway, we visit many countries, Africa, Latin America, Caribbean, and I arrived America back in 1990, Pensacola, Florida, and then New York.
So, Jose, that was your introduction to America. What brought you eventually to Washington, D.C., and why has the district become so rooted in who you are, beyond the fact, obviously, that you met your wife here? There must have been something that made D.C., it struck a chord with you. It made you want to
Obviously,
stay.
The Nationals. The Nationals.
Of course.
I mean,
it starts
we are
and ends
with
there.
Mr. National. We are with Mr. National himself. When you join a new community, in my case, coming not only to America, but then coming to Washington, yes, you are welcome, you're received, you have that entire community that in a way is helping you to succeed. At least is the meaning of a community, to try to make sure every individual in that community succeeds equally as you. That's I believe is the main meaning of community. But then with that, especially coming from overseas, from another country, it comes with the necessity to understand that you also must become part of the community and give back to the community. When I come to Washington and I spent my first spring, and I see the beauty of all those cherry trees all across. My God, I was like, okay, I'm home.
I was gonna
These
say,
cherry,
yeah,
these
reminds you
cherry
of
trees
home.
don't produce cherries,
Mm.
but it's almost like was meant to be. And I told you about the Navy. My first apartment next to Jaleo, my Spanish restaurant, is next to the Navy Memorial of Washington, D.C.,
Oh, wow.
honoring all the Navy, mainly American, but it's the navies of the world, sailors, and it's an statue there of a sailor in the middle of the Navy Memorial. So I'm there between the cherry trees and that celebration of the Navy. I'm like, this is my city. Of course, this is my city.
Well, I mean, I think you talked about Haleo, and obviously we can talk about some more of your restaurants, but I think, and I'm speaking on behalf of a lot of people in DC, I think people obviously love your food. But you always told me that you love food because it brings everyone together. And we've talked about this. It brings people to the table that might not sit at a table together or might. And I think, the people of DC obviously love your food, like I said, but I think they love your attitude, your energy. I mean, just listening to you tell these stories right
Yeah.
now about the cherry trees and, you're so joyful that I think, your food obviously is great, but I think people, when we talked a couple of times about how you said food brings people together and everyone has food in common, that's one of the best things and most memorable things you've ever said to me. And I think that's why people love you so much in DC, because it doesn't matter what you believe in, where you're from, and especially in this city, like what you believe in other aspects. They love your food, and more importantly, they love the atmospheres of your restaurants because it breeds, communication and fun and joy. And, it's just food is joy to you, I feel like.
Food is joy. I mean, was a French philosopher that was a big foodie that wrote a book in 1826. And happens I own a first edition. I collect all books, especially old cookbooks or anything that has to do with food. And this guy said, tell me what you eat and I will tell you who you are. And this is a very powerful phrase, my friends. And I always believe that my happy moments, they've always been around a kitchen since I was little. That's why I think one of the things that for me, I love the big pot. Big pot. Doesn't matter if it's how many people are coming. I don't know, but don't worry, I'm making a big pot. But what happens if we are only two? I don't like to cook small pots.
Yeah.
I'm making a big pot anyway.
There's a lot of leftovers.
So in my house, there's never an issue of that. It's no waste food. I'll give it away after. But I like to cook big pots because, I mean, you imagine, like, if I'm going to cook in a pot like this, for that I played Nintendo, man. I mean, so I like to make big pots. And that's happiness. The going to the market, the cooking. Many of my friends who know they're coming, they're not coming for lunch. They're coming way before lunch because they're coming while we're cooking.
Yep.
Yeah, we began opening some beers, some wine, and while we're cooking, and I love that. If they don't bother me and they don't ask too many questions, they're welcome. And then you set the table, and that moment of sitting in the table, and obviously friends and family who is first, friends who are close second. But then I also enjoy that these sometimes the moments we've all done it, that the biggest honor we can do to a new person coming to a community, coming to a city, coming to a neighborhood, is that moment that we tell somebody, come home.
Yep.
And they're coming home. And usually when you invite somebody to come home, you don't invite them for, come home, you're going to paint the walls with me. No, you invite them home for lunch or dinner. Because this is the first thing you do. It's the first thing you show respect. You tell them you're welcome. I'm going to take care of you. You're new into this town. And this always happened to me, especially I remember my Navy days. Always somebody in the Navy days will welcome me in the city and invite me. This for me was always important. I saw it with my dad and my mom. So for me, it was not any different. So yes, a table, I always say longer tables wins the day because there's nothing more beautiful than a longer table. That's what I love, the concept of. I think I'm the biggest cheerleader of Thanksgiving. I mean, I love Thanksgiving. It's no, it's a great moment. I mean, all America coming together. Even it's all the people around the world that celebrate Thanksgiving too now. But the meaning of we're all together in this. We have this moment to give thanks for all the things we have, all the things we share together, the joys, sometimes the pains, but there we're together. And a table is the good moment to give thanks for everything we get.
Jose, once you had success with a couple of restaurants, you could have, I guess, stopped there. And you have certainly not stopped. You've kept growing and coming up with new restaurant concepts and menus and advancing into different cities. Why did you make the decision to keep scaling up so much? And what challenges have come with that for you?
Yeah, I think I'm writing a book of my memoirs. I think it'll be published in 30 years from now. But this is one of the key questions. Why I didn't stay with one? It's like a player playing in 10 different teams, you know.
Yeah.
I'm a big team, but I feel, for me, I love learning, right? The, I'm 56, as I said, and only talking about food and culinary. The more I know, I know nothing. It's fascinating to me that when I was younger, I thought I knew everything. Like, leave me alone, I know it. And as you grow older, the more you know, you realize how clueless you are about everything. I come to Spain, which many people say I'm one of the biggest experts in the world of Spanish cooking. People say that. I didn't say that about myself, to be clear. Every time I come to Spain, I find dishes I never heard of, I never tasted, and that's the reason I open so many restaurants. Even sometimes, I guess in life, that's humanity itself, right? Once we have something, sometimes we second guess ourselves, right? Sometimes it's careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think having
But
one,
I'm very glad because now I have. Who was going to say I came to America with $50, and now I have over 40 restaurants in multiple cities in America, which has allowed me to. America is a very big place, man. You can be traveling all your life, and still is places that nobody knows who are amazing with amazing people. So it gave me a great opportunity to get to know America more doing the American restaurant. But then when I do any other restaurant, it's exactly the same. Gets me to know those places, not only as a tourist, but almost like an academic. Like I'm going to understand, I'm going to belong. So then I can tell my story of what I saw and of the people that told me their stories through a menu, through a restaurant. My restaurants are my stories and the stories of other people that sometimes they need help telling their stories too. And a restaurant is a hard way to do this. I rather prefer I was a painter. Not like painting is easy, but you understand. Will we use a painting? Me and the painting.
yeah.
Me and the brush. That's it.
Well, it seems like having one restaurant would be the easy way out for you. And it sounds like opening restaurants in different places and meeting people in that community is kind of what has turned you into the person that you are today. And you're so receptive to learning wherever you go. And then you said you take their story, you turn it into food. But I think the people of those communities appreciate you taking the time to actually listen and hear their stories instead of being some famous chef that comes in and just does it your way. I feel like you come in almost leaning on the community, or you're so open-minded. You want to just learn where you're going. You're so eager to learn new things that I think if you would have just kept one restaurant, I don't think you would have
That's probably
turned
true.
into what you are today. So you say it would have been easier, but I don't think we'd be talking and doing all this if you didn't do what you've done.
Yeah, definitely. I don't. Yeah, I don't. Sometimes I regret it, but then I don't. I mean, it's been a joy. It's been fascinating. The amazing teams I have working with me, the amazing people, the amazing guests who became friends, who I met.
Jose, you haven't just launched all these restaurants, you've also launched various philanthropic ventures as well. World Central Kitchen has become a force. You have done so much good. You launched that in 2010 after the Haiti earthquake. And as I mentioned, you have utilized World Central Kitchen to provide food in the wake of natural disasters really all over the world. And during the COVID pandemic, you and your crew utilized Nationals Park to provide meals for so many families here throughout the DC area. Why did giving and philanthropy become something that you wanted to sink so much of your life into? Why was this not even a passion, but it feels like a necessity for you?
You know, Ryan knows the story because he's been a very important member helping us raise a lot of money and more than money, bringing awareness to organization in DC that is very close to me way before World Central Kitchen. And this is DC Central Kitchen. Nothing to do one with the other, even in a spirit, we are very much alike. DC Central Kitchen was founded on President Bush inauguration day, very much, by this amazing man called Robert Egger, a bartender, a Washingtonian in many ways, a Washingtonian. Even now he's in New Mexico. Robert Egger saw that was a lot of food being wasted sometimes, and saw a lot of hunger and need. And he put both together and transformed a problem into an opportunity. Began taking ex-convicts with no chances sometimes to get a job because the system is created that way. Homeless that sometimes they never got the same opportunity an immigrant like me got. Brought them to the kitchen, gave them a place to belong, trained them to be cooks. We will get food donated by restaurants, hotels, food companies, farmers. Sometimes we'll buy the food. We will produce 10, 20,000 meals a day. Those people will be living, the volunteers coming in. Those no homeless anymore, no ex-convicts anymore, but people of our community will become great cooks that then they will be graduating, and then places like mine will hire them. Not only $1 to feed the poor, the hungry, but $1 to rescue people from the streets, $1 to rescue food is about to be wasted, $1 to produce meals to feed 10, 20,000 homeless a day, and $1 to keep giving trained workers to the restaurant hospitality industry of Washington, D.C. Wow, $1 all of a sudden multiplied by 4. For me, that was big learning. And I saw the power of food beyond the restaurants that people like me, we feed the few. All of a sudden, the same power, the same lessons that my mother taught me using leftovers to do amazing meals, put at the service of feeding the many. That for me was very important to really understand the power of food to improve our communities. Robert Egger, he told me that charity seems is always about the redemption of the giver, when charity, philanthropy should be about the liberation of the receiver. Okay, then every profession has this opportunity. That's a matter what profession you are. You have your duty to take care of the few, but we all have the power of taking care of the many. That's a matter where we come from. A cook obviously cooks for the people. So that talent, I began realizing, especially in a stadium, especially the problem in Katrina, New Orleans. the devastating Katrina hurricane category 5 and above devastated many parts of Louisiana, and especially New Orleans. And remember what happened in the Superdome. 20,000 Americans for over 7+ days with no food, no water, no security, a mess. I understand the hurricane was terrible, but we were highly unprepared because the hurricane was devastating, but also we didn't have the quickness to adapt to what was evolving. We didn't adapt quick enough. And there I realized, how is this possible? Because everybody is wrong about the stadiums. I remember first time in 1990s that I went to see my first baseball game in America, the Yankees, up north in the Bronx. And I was fascinated because nobody was watching the game. I know that it's not like Yankees were playing their best baseball in 1991. But nonetheless, everybody was eating hot dogs. So, like, you're not watching the game, man. What's going on here? Shit, but it's fascinating. It's so much food you can eat in these stadiums. So I began realizing that everybody is wrong about the stadiums. A stadium is not a place you go to see the Nationals. An arena is not a place you go to see the New Orleans Saints. A stadium is a gigantic restaurant that entertains with sports and sometimes with Taylor Swift. Every one of those venues has food courts. It takes 1 hour to open them up. If you have no electricity, you bring the generators, and it's always food somewhere. And if you go with a speaker and say, I need volunteers to help me cook, everybody's going to raise their hand because that's the way America is. Therefore, how is possible that we leave people hungry in a stadium? This was the building blocks of, I was watching New Orleans. I didn't move a finger. I was in the comfort of my house, changing channels, seeing the horrors, but then forgetting about it. But then Haiti happens. I was in Cayman Islands, 2010. I said, you know one thing? I don't know if I can do something about it, but I'm going to go to learn. I landed in Haiti, Port-au-Prince. Thousands of people died. Hundreds of thousands lost their homes. And I began cooking. And that's the beginning of World Central Kitchen.
Wow.
The Nationals was fascinating because when I saw the pandemic coming, already, I remember December 31st, 2019, we were already seeing the news of what was going on in China, in Wuhan. And me, I'm a guy that always thinks about those situations. It's like, how we're going to feed people if this is like a movie? It's a virus that like a movie we are. So I knew that we began feeding in Japan in January when the first cruise ship with COVID arrived to the port of Yokohama. Then we received a phone call from California. The second cruise ship with COVID was arriving to Auckland. We went there. Stephen Curry came to help. And we began feeding those, but very quickly we were saying, this is going to be a mess. We're going to need the stadiums. We're going to need restaurants. And the stadium's idea was this. Can I have a place that I put everybody inside, isolated, everybody tested, everybody clean, all the food inside for weeks, if not months, and we can feed, we can cook inside the stadium, keeping also everybody in there working there safe. And then with trucks, we send into the different hospitals and different communities that will need help in the short term. And I was looking for, the convention center. I was looking for the arena downtown. And obviously I called the learners, and man, they couldn't, everybody wanted to help. But at the end, with all the possibilities we had, we assessed that the best location was the Nationals Stadium. And the learners and all the team was so amazing that if any fans don't know about it, if they are proud to be a Washington Nationals fan, because the great team we are and the amazing championships and everything, that's great. But they should be very proud because in the middle of the pandemic, the Nationals became the hardcore of World Central Kitchen feeding many communities, many hospitals. Even we use restaurants too across Virginia, Maryland, and Washington, D.C. And that's when a team is more than a team. And that happened in Washington during the pandemic. And for me, it was something like forever. I will be thankful to the Nationals, to the Lerner family, and all the organization and all the players, because together we made it happen. And that's the spirit of World Central Kitchen.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
That's
and I
great
think,
stuff.
obviously we're all very thankful for all that you've done. And, I think one thing I take from that is food and sports are very similar because you talk about, maybe the ex-convict or the homeless or that DC Central Kitchen is saved. But baseball and sports in general, too, kids that come from bad situations, kids that might not have a good family structure, might not have a good start on life, I guess you can say.
Mm-hmm.
Sports and food kind of give them opportunity and a purpose to keep them out of trouble, to basically say, hey, I might not have the best situation, but I'm good at cooking or I'm good at football or I'm good at baseball, and it gives them a new lease on life. So I just love what DC Central Kitchen does. Obviously, all your organizations have been great, and we can't thank you enough. But, yeah, thank you for that story because I think a lot of people don't know
Yeah.
all the stuff that you do, and
Yeah.
they should because it's pretty special.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Want to get to some rapid fires?
Yeah, so at the end of every interview, Jose, I get to ask you 5 quick questions.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, so it's called 5 walk-off questions from Mr. Walk-Off.
There you go.
I remember
You
it.
got it.
First time I
Good job,
remembered,
buddy.
Jose. I'm starting to get good at this stuff. Watch out. So if you're ready, I'll shoot some. It's just 5 quick questions.
Listen, I was just ready when I had to throw the first pitch.
Well, there
that
we
was going
go.
to be something. But
There we go.
My first question I'll ask you is, what is the motto you live life by? What do you wake up every day? What is your purpose? What's a good slogan or a quote that you live your life by? It's tough.
It's a tough
My
one.
God, this is wow. That's deep.
It is
What's
deep.
going on here? Oh my
Sorry.
God, you got me off guard.
You locked him up.
I
What
locked
is-
him up.
What is? I'm about to do AI. Like,
I feel like you've answered this question probably 3 times during.
That's
during this
true,
interview.
yeah.
I think one motto that I always
Yeah.
repeat all the time, and more in the times we live on, that seems sometimes people or seems sometimes looking for for confrontation is easier than looking for understanding.
Hmm.
And I always say this thing, right? I do believe that what is good for you must be good for me. What is good for me must be good for all. We are all at the end people that we want to succeed. I do believe, like, if we don't think so introvert about what is good for me only, but what is good for the people around me. I think that's a good motto to live by.
I like
Because
that.
then the way you live your life and the decisions you make, in a way, they are not selfish. It's nothing wrong looking for you and your own. Actually, is what everybody should be doing. But I think it's so much more fulfilling when you are trying also to live a life that then what is good for me and my family and my friends, I'm gonna work hard to make sure it's good for everybody else.
That's good. It's a good one.
I love it. This one will be easier, but there's probably a lot of answers. Favorite restaurant in the world?
Oh, that's a good one. Well, besides my house,
Of course.
it changes, but I'm gonna mention one that is obviously not open anymore, and it's El Bulli. is where I began cooking. Um, it's not where I began cooking, but it's the moment, even being young, before joining the Spanish Navy and coming to America, that I learned the meaning of creativity, of looking beyond the horizon. And the chef is Ferran Adrià. The restaurant is El Bulli, North Barcelona. Now it's like a foundation. The restaurant is open, but not as a restaurant, but as a museum. But it's a museum about creativity because at the end, food is creativity. And if I tell you one place that forever is in my heart, it's El Bulli, not because I worked there, but because the food was the most fascinating food in the history of mankind in creativity. This one is one that I really forever, I will say, is is my favorite restaurant.
Okay.
I love it. All right, you've probably cooked for a lot of famous people, a lot of important people. First of all, who is the most famous person or the most important person you've ever cooked for? And second of all, were you more nervous to cook for them or throw out the first pitch in the World Series?
I mean, I I cook for a lot of names and big names, and what one person I really cooked already a few times, but first time I really met her and I invite her home. It's a woman called Jane Goodall.
Hmm.
Jane Goodall is legendary. She's done so much to preservation of habitats for the chimpanzees
Yep.
and bringing awareness of, and she's a legend. Just you listen to her talking, and and I was very impressed with her, and she's a friend now, and also I was impressed because also my daughters were very impressed.
Yep.
And she, you know, I can give you names and actors and big name politicians of both parties, of different parties, and kings and princesses but and Ryan and Ryan.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Goes
Yeah.
without saying.
But then the first page, the fun part was that I when I was young, before I moved to that town I told you, which by the way is the same town I was shooting hoops on, the same place that Pau Gasol and Marc Gasol, the NBA legends, shoot. The mom of Pau and Marc was a doctor in a hospital. She was the boss of my mother.
Wow.
But I never met him until he didn't move to the LA Lakers.
Wow.
Anyway, but I'm only saying this, not used to. So cooking for Pau was a big time deal
Yeah.
too. I remember sending Pau. He came first time to the restaurant I opened in LA, and I do tapas, and I send him this tapa, and it's a steak, but a small steak. And he looks at me. I'm like, Jose, I use plate because I came from with the game with him. I use plate. Can you send me 8 more plates?
Send me a whole dinner,
Yeah.
send me some food.
But I was only telling you that anyway. So before I moved to that town, where Pau Gasol near is to, I live in another town. Arriving to Barcelona, I was an immigrant. I was coming from another part of Spain, Asturias, to Barcelona, and there was a lot of construction. Barcelona was booming. A lot of people from around Spain was coming. Barcelona became one of the big industrial economic motors of Spain. The cities were growing, and I remember outside the apartment we were living in, that was also on the edge, and there was a lot of cornfields near the airport of Barcelona. And there we will play baseball, but we will play baseball with tennis balls. You had to go, and we didn't play with a baseball bat. We play like with a flat stick. So the older boys, they will hit the ball. My God, and very often will end in the cornfields. And the way we will play is that if you catch a ball in the air, so if they catch a ball in the air, you will be eliminated. But then you will be able to save one of your friends that was eliminated. And until all the team was not eliminated, you didn't change sides. It was amazing. This is how we play baseball. Today, that town has one of the best baseball teams in Spain.
That's
of the
amazing.
Bay. But anyway, fascinating story, because I only realized about the cornfields when I saw the Fields of Dreams.
Yeah.
and Kevin Costner,
Yeah.
right? And I'm like, I was like there. I was like there, but in Spain. So anyway, I don't know why I'm telling you that. So I already had this moment of baseball in my life. I was super young. I was 6, 7, 8, 9, and we were playing baseball like in Spain, and was some of the best moments of my life. So I already had some experience 20, 30, 40 years before, sometimes pitching, but this moment was very amazing, and I was so thankful that you agreed to be my catcher, and you saved me. I arrived. I trained so much for the week before that by the time I got there, I couldn't move my
Your arm
arm.
was
Yeah, I
so
was going to say
sore.
you're probably.
Literally,
Yeah.
I couldn't move my arm.
That's
I
hilarious.
could. I did okay. I did okay.
Well, you did good. I thought you did good. It's not as easy as people think.
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure.
I did okay.
Yeah. All right. Two more quick ones. So you said you're a big book collector during this interview of famous old books. And what is your favorite book that you have? This is interesting. I've become a big reader, but it sounds like you have old cookbooks. It sounds like you have some historic books. What's the coolest
Well, I
book
have
you
this
have?
one from a guy called. This one is not interesting from the story itself, but it's more science. This was Napoleon Bonaparte in 1800 was giving 10,000 gold francs to anyone that will come up with a way to feed his troops in the front lines. He came up with canning to put something in a can.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
Canned
So
goods,
he
yeah.
invented canning.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And it's not many books because this was a scientific book. It was not a book for people to read.
Yeah.
And I have a first edition of that book printed in 1810, and it's the first book that talks about preserving foods like
That's
vegetables,
really cool.
Yeah.
like fish, and like meats. That's why I love cans so much. I think cans is the most underloved food in the history. You open a can of sardines, they're so cute. They are looking at you, perfectly positioned. It's like they spend so much time in the can that they have time to organize themselves.
Yeah, right.
And there are bad cans. Depends the price you pay, obviously. But even a cheap can be amazing,
Yeah.
especially if they are in olive oil. So I mean, listen, you can be at third base. You can take a can with you. Nobody will notice. And if the game is boring, you are having there
Just having
a
some
snack with
sardines. Yeah.
with the Empire. I mean,
Yeah.
it's amazing.
Good protein in those sardines.
You can bribe the Empire with a can of sardines. You're like, hey, baby, can you call it on my side? I catch it before he arrived to third base.
Oh,
Oh, I love it. All right, last one. We ask this to everyone as the very last question. What is your go-to karaoke song?
Yeah. Well, I have many, but what is the name of the song? He's gonna kill me.
He has many. I like it. A karaoke guy. I figured you'd be one.
Yeah, I think I even has to be. I have many. Man,
you locked him up again.
David, it's so many. It's so many, man. Because I'm thinking about Ed Sheridan. I love.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know if karaoke, but it's the one I sing in the car. But I know David Matthews. I love.
Yes.
It's many
David.
I love. I mean, I remember Madonna. I like a
Yes.
virgin. I was in the Navy.
I think we'll go with that one.
I used to sing it. But if I it's one that is, let's say we can do karaoke driving in a car.
Yep.
And I think it's Thin Man, which is driving at 60, those all country lanes. Anyway, he tells the story of him growing up in his community with his friends, telling life as goes, never giving up on his friends. And when I'm driving in Virginia, Maryland, going to eat crabs or oysters, Virginia, Maryland, or going to the amazing wine countryside that Virginia and in some parts of Maryland too has to offer, I love to put that song, and my daughter, and I repeat it. You know what's wrong with me? I repeat the song like 25 times in a row. That's why sometimes I like to drive alone, because if I go with my daughters are like,
Yeah,
Daddy, please,
enough
we
already.
jump out of the car. We jump out of the car.
It's amazing.
Oh, Jose. Well, you are the best. I can't thank you enough for taking the time to do this with me and Dan. Like we said before, we were looking forward to this one. It's an honor to have you on, and I speak for all the people of D.C., Virginia, Maryland. We all love you, and thank you so much for doing this. We had a blast, and like you said, I wish we could.
Yeah.
I wish we could keep talking for hours, but
Next time we'll cook. Next time we'll cook.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So Ryan, thank you for both of you, and Ryan, thank you for being the person you are. You've been a champ all your life on the field, and now we know you are a big champ to your family, to your friends, which I consider myself one, and to your community. So thank you for having me in your family here. Thank you, guys.
I appreciate that, and me and the kids are coming over for dinner. We're finally going to make it happen.
Done.
And we have a lot of kids, so you better have that big pot ready.
Don't worry,
the big pot.
It's always ready.
Jose, thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Bye.
Thanks, Jose.
Take care.
Take care.
Thank you. Let's get to some of your questions and comments that you've continued to send in to us. We really appreciate that. 11th.inning at nationals.com, 11th.inning at nationals.com. You can also send us messages on social media. Ryan is all over Instagram. He will see all of them. Let's get to one from Dakota Moyer, who says, I don't have a go-to karaoke song because I don't do karaoke, but based on what I think, it was either Doolittle or DeRosa said, I've got friends in low places is Dakota's karaoke song. So Dakota's not willing to do the karaoke, but is still going to contribute a karaoke song for the sake of this podcast.
People need to start doing karaoke.
I had no idea that you were such a big karaoke
So
guy.
I wasn't, and then I did it, and it's like I've said, it's almost therapeutic. Like the thought of getting up there is terrifying, and then once you do it, it's kind of empowering. So all you guys that are scared, let's go. Step up.
Is this a broader life lesson as well?
That if Ryan, life coach, do karaoke.
Start there, and then we'll progress into the more serious matters. Okay, Dakota's question after contributing that karaoke song, thank you, Dakota, is, Zim, how did you prepare for a game before you played? What stretches, throws, runs can I use for my baseball games? Good stuff from Dakota.
Great question. And it's funny, everyone assumes baseball players are all, we have to do the same thing every day. We have to, that's like the assumption.
Well, some of you are that.
Some of us are. I was never like, if I got a hit, I had to wear the same socks the next day. I was never, but I was a huge routine guy.
Okay.
And this will shock none of my close friends and definitely not my wife. I'm about as type A as it gets, which is a gift and a curse, I've been told. So like for a 7:00 game, I would usually get to the park sometime around 1:30, would eat some lunch. Then I'd go right back to the training room.
They'd work on you for about 12, 14 hours.
I would go hot tub, cold tub, get that done. And then I'd go into the training room, and whatever was wrong that day, some days it was, 10 minutes of a quick, just check, make sure everything's good. Some days it was like an hour and 10 minutes, So you start there and make sure everything's right. Then I would go into the gym and do kind of the exercises that, the medical staff has sort of tailored to you. Each player has their own problems, and, then I would go there and do that. Then I would go down to the cage and do kind of my routine, whether it's flips. I didn't take a lot of swings, but I did my 2 or 3 things I did every single day. So I would do those. Then you come back up, maybe get a little snack or something like that, get dressed to go outside for batting practice. And a lot of towards the end of my career, which I loved, we started doing ground balls before batting practice. Because when you're trying to take ground balls during batting practice, you're
Yeah.
You're watching. You're not really working on it. So the infielders all got together and we kind of said, hey, let's go out there 15 minutes early and just do our ground balls without balls flying around. So then you do that, and then, you maybe go back down to the cage and just hit a little bit, and then, you do your turn, whatever group you're in, batting practice. So that gets you to like 4:45-ish, I would say. 4:45, closer, maybe around 5 o'clock if you sit out there and talk to people after batting practice. And then basically from 5 to game time, you come in. If it's the summer, some people would shower after because, batting practice, whatever. And then I would always do kind of whatever from 5 to 6. And Worth actually got me on this. Worth would be like full uni, ready to go at 6 o'clock.
Really?
Not like ready to go out the door, but like dressed
Uh-huh.
with his shoes on. And then you kind of go to the second round of going into the gym. Everyone sort of had their little like 10-minute routine that they would go around, and whatever 4 or 5 exercises got you like locked in and ready to go, that's what you would do. And then around 6:20, 6:30, you go down to the cage. I did like a throwing routine, like a fielding routine in the cage where I'm not throwing very far, but I did it every day. And then you'd hit a little bit more if you wanted just to get ready. And then at 6:50, right after, the anthem, and then right after the anthem was done, I'd go out and I'd do like, 3 or 4 runs, come in, and then you do it, it's go time.
Get ready to go 3 for 4.
And then you do it again 161 more times.
Yep. That's a cool look into the amount of detail and planning goes into getting ready for a game every single day. Good stuff. Let's get to one now from Joshua Drew Briner, who says, Zim and Dan, DC is big on history and museums. Once I randomly ran into Zim at a Smithsonian museum. It was a quick hi and bye, as I didn't want to bother Zim, who I assumed was with his family. Zim, do you have a favorite DC museum? And bonus question, what Nats artifact would you love to see in a DC museum? I like this one.
Wow. Okay, first of all, I love all the museums. I know that's, a corny answer, but I'm going to go with Spy Museum is really cool.
Yep.
My kids love the Spy Museum, and I love that kind of stuff. Like, I like CIA, I like
James Bond.
Yeah, I like that kind of stuff. And like the stuff they have at the Spy Museum,
Yeah,
they have
that's awesome.
stuff like that, and they have interactive things. So I'd highly recommend that.
Yep.
And then I would also highly recommend the Air and Space Museum, but not the one in the city.
Out.
Which the one in the city is great too.
It's good.
But the one out by Dulles,
Yes.
which I believe is the Udvar Hazy Air and Space. This place is just basically an enormous airplane hangar. I mean, they have the space shuttle there. They have all sorts of cool planes, helicopters, anything that deals with air travel is there, like hot air balloons, like drones, all this stuff. And like I said, it's just an enormous airplane hangar. So I just, sometimes during the week, if I'm bored, I just take my boys out there, and they love planes, helicopters, and all that, and they can just run around.
Yeah.
But I would highly recommend those two. Nats baseball artifact in a museum. That's a tough question. I mean, something from the first game I think would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Obviously, like first ball, first pitch. Oh, man. I don't know. Do you have anything for that? I feel like you're better at these questions than me.
I mean, if someone can find a way to hack into Jan Gomez's lair and get the final out of the 2019 World Series, that would be pretty good. He's guarding that one pretty solidly. I don't know. I'm partial to things that we legitimately have not seen before in team history. Max Scherzer striking out 20 in a game. I mean, that's only been done, I think, by 5 pitchers in a 9-inning game. Maybe it's 4. So maybe, his cap from that game or something like that. But
Jan Gomes knows lots of jiu-jitsu and MMA.
Oh, so don't
tough.
break into it.
It could be tough to get that ball.
All right. Good to know. All right. Our last question for today comes from Mike, who says, this kind of Zim works off of our earlier discussion about travel.
Okay.
Mike says, if you had to pick one division across baseball to play in solely because of the cities that you would travel to, in that division, more often, obviously, being in division. What would that division be? Love the pod. Keep it up.
This one's easy for me. It's NL West. I mean, LA,
San Diego,
San Francisco, Arizona,
Yep.
Denver.
Yeah.
I love, first of all, like, I think I've made it clear I love going to the West Coast. Arizona, I think, is a fun city. Obviously, if you go in the middle of the summer, it can be really hot, but it doesn't matter during the games.
Right.
And then Denver, I just think is that stadium is gorgeous. The whole, like, going in the upper deck and being above a mile high.
Mm-hmm.
The downtown of Denver is so much fun. You can walk to the park if you want. Easy answer for me.
I agree with you. I am going to put the AL East in the conversation. You're talking about some New York trips. Boston, is
Cool.
Is
On
a
the
cool
water,
city.
cool northeast city.
There's fun to be had in Baltimore.
Homer.
Tampa, St. Pete. If you stay, both cities are cool. I like staying in Tampa. My sister actually lives in St. Pete and loves it there. And back when the Trop was going, and hopefully, they'll get it right again, you're playing indoors, so you're not going to have any rain delays. And then Toronto is one of the sneaky better cities on the landscape.
Toronto is lots of fun.
Yeah.
And beautiful on the water. I mean, it's similar like we talked about Chicago. If you go there and catch a good summer weekend.
Totally.
The food there is great.
AL East provides you quite a few options as well.
You get some of the Canadian chocolates and stuff. That's different.
Canadian chocolates?
They just have different candy bars up there.
Ah.
I bring them back for the kids and just super dad.
What a guy.
Yeah, what a guy.
What a guy. Awesome. Thank you for all the questions as always. Thank you for following, keeping up with the podcast. We're loving hearing from you guys and appreciate all the support. Thank you to Wendy Bailey, our executive producer. Thank you to Nate Baker, our producer, editor, shooter extraordinaire. Thank you to Olivia. Thank you to Lizzie. Thank you to everyone who's helping us put this out every couple of weeks. And thank you all for listening as well.
And get out there and sing some karaoke. Let's go.
Do it. Make Ryan happy.
Please, just do it for me.
This has been another episode of the 11th Inning Podcast.